Hey, Bright Lights, welcome back to the Space Doctor series on the Architecting channel. My name is Angela, and I'm an architect, researcher, and feng shui practitioner who has dedicated my career to studying the science behind design for well-being. I make thoughtful weekly videos on this topic, so you don't have to be an expert. All you have to do is like and subscribe to this channel, and you will get updates every single week that will be really good prompts for you, whether you are a design professional like me, if you are studying this, or if you just want to be an advocate for better quality of life for yourself, your friends, your family, your community, because design really does make a difference. And every time you listen in, you will learn more about exactly how that works. Now, I do this using a deck of cards that I developed that shows all of the research I've done. And if you've been listening, you know the deck has two parts. There are foundational concepts. Those are the things that contribute to our well-being or dis-ease. And then there are the aspects of salutogenesis. These are 5 core theories that my research has shown define what well-being is comprised of. I always shuffle the cards and I set an intention when I do. But the cards I draw are the message that people most need to see in that particular week, the really prevailing issues that we should be prompted to think a little bit more about, raise awareness around. Now, the card that I drew from the foundational concepts part of the deck is the stress card. Now, if you watched last week's episode, you know that I drew this card then too. So we really need to be paying attention to stress, apparently. Now, when I talked about stress last week, I talked about very specifically how it impacts our ability to think critically and avoid bias. But this week, we have a different companion card, so we're going to dig deeper into stress, specifically how it impacts us physiologically. So the first thing we need to understand about stress is that as human beings, we evolved to be safe against threats in our physical environment. So our stress response was built to deal with what is known as episodic, meaning it occurs, we deal with it, we reset, and then we go along with our lives and for a while before we maybe encounter another episode. However, in today's world, most of the stress that we have is not a physical danger and it is chronic. So let's explore why the physical danger that our body thinks it's reacting to is really not helping us in a world of non-physical and chronic stress. So the stress response means our body is flooded with the hormones adrenaline and cortisol, and this causes a whole chain reaction of things to happen in our body. So our higher levels of thought shut down. We are in a reactive state. We do what we know. We're in survival mode. And if you want to know more about that, go ahead and listen to last week's episode. But also, our immune system shuts down. Our digestive system shuts down. The blood goes to our arms and legs because those are the things we most need, most likely, if we had to deal with a physical danger. Now, if that were true, the very act of fighting or running away would cause those chemicals to burn out of our system, and our system would have a chance to reset. However, in today's world, where stress is non-physical, one, we are not working the stress out of our system, but two, when it's chronic, we keep getting more of those stress chemicals in our system, those bodily functions that get altered during that fight or flight response stay that way. And that has long-term effects. It can cause us to get sick more often. You may notice if you've gone through a especially stressful period that you tend to get sick. But over time, it can lead to much more serious diseases like heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer. So this is no joke. Being stressed out is very, very harmful. It also can impact our mental health, leading to PTSD, chronic PTSD, anxiety, depression, and a host of other mental health issues as well. Our autonomic nervous system has two parts, and the stress response is part of the sympathetic nervous system, meaning it is vigilant, it is paying attention, it is scanning the world looking for anything it perceives as a threat. In that state, we are expending energy. So if we want to think of this as, say, your food pantry at home, this is where we are taking things off the shelf because we need them. But what's going to happen? Eventually, the shelf is going to be empty. That's where the parasympathetic system comes in. This is known as rest and digest. And in the parasympathetic state, our body is focused on healing. It is focused on being in a restorative state, which is really important. And in fact, we should probably spend most of our time in that parasympathetic state where we are in a process of generating healthy new cells, mental and physical well-being, where we are aging gracefully, where we are not being heavily impacted by traumas. It's a beautiful world, and it is a possible world for us to spend more time into when we can just become more aware of the stress response. The card that I pulled from the aspects part of the deck is rest. Now you can see how this is a great complement to everything we were talking about with stress. So everybody, this week, we all need to focus on how we can lower our stress response and get more rest. Rest is part of the relaxation response aspect, and that aspect is associated with the water element in feng shui. Water is all about cleansing, healing, restoring, and that's exactly what the relaxation response does. It activates a process called allostasis, which is really a shifting from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system. If stress meant that we were taking all the food out of our pantry because we needed it, rest is how we do the restocking. We've gone to the grocery store and we've come back with all the goodies. When we rest, our body can not just replenish energy, but it can heal. You're going to notice when you get rest that you have improved focus, improved mood. You're not crabby. You don't have a short temper. You're more patient. You don't feel curmudgeonly. You're not biting people's heads off because you have a stronger capacity now to cope with adversity. We want to think about that pool of water, right? How it is just tranquil and you can float just like that person so languidly. That pool represents liberation. It represents a shift in perspective, opening up to new insights because you don't have to be worried about what is threatening you. You can worry about what is possible. Those flagstones, they symbolize permanence, grounding, common as headstones, because the idea of that ritual, that remembering, is a big part of what flagstones represent. And that is a big part of rest, right? We have to plan for it. We have to make it a habit and a ritual in our lives, or else it's not going to happen for us. Now, also, rest is not just about sleep, because if you are stressed, you probably notice it is not so easy to sleep. You're in a state that is known as wired and tired. So you feel agitated and restless, and your thoughts won't slow down. It's very hard to relax. And even if you feel exhausted, you go to bed and you toss and turn. So we want to think about other ways to get rest. And according to Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith, there are 7 forms of rest, sleep being part of just one of them, which is the physical rest. So while there are ways you can get physical rest, you can sit quietly. You can take a walk at a slow pace. You can lie down. You can just do things that are more soothing physically to your body, like rocking. Mental rest. Our brains use an incredible amount of energy. So you may be thinking, I sit all day and work at a computer. Why am I so tired? You're so tired because you've been solving problems all day. You've been doing a lot of hard mental work. That's going to deplete you just as much as if you've been swinging a pickaxe. So you need to do things that let you daydream more often. You need to take more breaks. You need to take time to stare out the window and let your mind go totally blank. Those are ways you can get mental rest. Spiritual rest. This could be practicing your religion. It could be praying, but it can also be things like meditation, saying a mantra, singing, anything that gets you into a state where you feel more connected, where you feel like you can surrender your need to have to control or fix or monitor to a higher power. Emotional rest. This happens a lot if you are dealing with demanding clients, toxic people in your personal life or your work life. It is something caretakers find, that there's a lot of emotional demand on them and they need to take a break. How do you do that? You need to do things that help you focus on joy, gratitude, love, appreciation, feeling a sense of wonder or awe. That is going to help you get emotional rest. Sensory rest. In today's world, we are overloaded, right? We are assaulted constantly by things that are saying, look at me, pay attention over here. Hey, reset this, fix this, respond to this. We need to be more grounded in our bodies. We need to do things like take digital detoxes, like sit in the quiet, spend a little more time with our eyes closed, experience being out in the natural world where we're going to experience things with all of our senses. We know there's a loneliness epidemic. We are more connected than ever, yet more isolated than ever. And we are built to interact with other people. We're also built to have breaks from other people. So make sure that you have a community, that you feel that you are a contributor to that community, that that community is uplifting, that you participate in it, but also take your alone time. And finally, creative rest. We get into flow state when we are creative, and it does not matter. Maybe you are the greatest talent of the generation. Maybe you are never going to do more than paint by numbers. It does not matter. Do what you love to do. Be a maker. We have to talk about what this has to do with design. How can we create spaces that help us to get more rest? And this is where feng shui comes in. So couple things that are really important in feng shui that are also really important to help you get rest are minimize the clutter. Every time you encounter clutter like that stack of mail that breeds on your kitchen table, whether you're consciously aware of it or not, your brain is thinking, oh, I got to deal with that. Or what is that? And it is creating effort. Even if you ignore it, it's still creating effort in your brain. It is not restful. You want to avoid sharp edges because the brain perceives those as a threat. Remember, human beings evolved when threats were in the physical world. So think about having more curves or softer edges. Think about colors. You don't want a lot of bright colors, a lot of busy patterns. You don't want those complementary colors that are opposite one another on the color wheel. Those are all stimulating. You want monochromatic colors. Doesn't even matter, pick your favorite color, but keep the room all in different shades of that hue. That is going to be much more relaxing. You can even take a color bath, get one of those color changing LED lights, and just totally immerse yourself in a room that is your favorite color. Soft lighting, lighting that doesn't move or flicker. Think about soothing sounds. Think about how you could have furniture that is ergonomically right for you, that is quality, so that you feel comfortable. You're not going to get a whole lot of rest if you're getting a backache or a crick in your neck. So these are all ways that you can use rest to help reset that stress response, which is really important, not only for our health and well-being, but for our ability to respond to whatever life throws at us, because now we got our pantry stocked, right? So remember to tell a friend, like, and subscribe to this channel for more great content, and I will see you next time.